Wi-Fi on and off. I want to make sure Thunderbolt is how my two computers are communicating. Okay, so I think it was 41-ish. And it was an established player. Right, I'm going to go through and mark all these because some of them have changed, I think. Alright, so Elena Baltacha made a difference. An adored sibling, daughter, wife, and friend, she was also a superstar on the tennis courts, reaching a top 50 world ranking. She was also a role model off the court, creating opportunities for young girls in tennis through the academy she formed in her 20s. Her strength and resilience, often against the odds, is empowering. Throughout her life, she served it. She smashed it and she loved it, winning 11 ITF single titles and 4 ITF doubles titles. A key leader of the Fed Cup team, she also represented Scotland at the Junior Commonwealth Games and Team GB at the London 2012 Olympics. This is Elena's story. Game, set, and match. A key leader of the Fed Cup team, she also a proud Scot, Elena was indeed a citizen of the world. She would travel extensively throughout her career, but her story begins not in Scotland, but in the Ukraine, in the former USSR. One word change there, which I'm not going to bother with. Sergei Baltacha was born on the 28th of July 1979, 4 years before his sister Elena, who arrived on the 14th of August 1983. Their parents embodied sporting prowess. Olga as a pentathlete and Sergei as a footballer, was a key member of the Dynamo Kiev team that dominated the landscape in the 1980s.
Back in Kiev, yeah, he was very...
Sergei Baltacha was recruited to Something Academy as a teenager. It was a tough decision that would not only change his life, it would eventually mean a new life for all the Baltacha family beyond the Iron Curtain.
Like at that time I was 13 years old. It's like I said, it's like private school. Like you go.
All the Baltacha family beyond the Iron Curtain.
Like at that time I was 13 years.
A promising athlete, Olga Orsaka was a boarder at the School of Excellence too.
She studied as well. She was.
That talent resulted in a move from Kiev to Ipswich for the Baltacha family. It was a new world in more ways than one.
I don't even remember travelling from Kiev, but I remember when we first got to...
The move, driven by Sergei's football talent, was also political, and for the USSR and the UK, very significant. Sergei Baltacha was making history. Combined.
Well, he's obviously...
In late 1988, a delegation was sent to Moscow from Ipswich town to seal the signing of Sergei Baltacha. However, securing the signature of a Soviet footballer wasn't going to be straightforward, as director David Sheepshanks and manager John Duncan soon found out. Joining the Ipswich delegation at the meeting was Michael Oshenkov, football director of Dynamo Kiev. With the meeting at an impasse, he instigated a change of venue and tack. Following a 6-hour meeting, midnight to 4 a.m. dinner, and the consumption of 5 bottles of vodka and brandy, the deal was sealed the following morning.
And the
Even within the spirit of glasnost, it was a stressful time for Sergei, who remained in the USSR to deal with the many bureaucratic layers of paperwork required to ensure his transfer to the UK. As he anxiously awaited news, Elena grew increasingly excited and inquisitive about the prospect of a new life in Ipswich.
She asked 100.
The family were eventually given clearance and travelled to the UK in January 1989, where they were mobbed by the media upon their arrival at Heathrow Airport. As a priority, this Russian-speaking family focused on learning English. Well, they almost all did.
obviously 6
As Elena took to the streets on her new bike, her father was somewhat less excited to show off his new wheels, gifted to him by Ipswich Town.
We said we'd get him.
With Sergei Sr. settling into the club with a debut goal, Sergei Jr. was also building on his own football skills, joining the youth programme at Ipswich. With no opportunities for girls in football, Elena was determined to find her own sporting niche.
Because club, like
That repetition was found at home, when the family rearranged the living room and created a tennis court using the furniture.
I mean, that shows you how big the house was.
It's changed. At the tennis court, Sergei primed Elena in advance not to expect too much of herself on the first day with a coach. Elena, though, was set to shine from the off.
They said, Elena, look, don't.
Despite being just 6 years old, Elena was demonstrating a determination to succeed. In that respect, she was very much a product of her parents.
Russian, in general, athletes and people are.
After just a year in Ipswich, the Baltacha family were on the move again, this time to Perth, when Sergei signed for St Johnstone. It was a big signing for the club, and a move that allowed the Baltacha children to revel in their love of sport. Elena's focus in Scotland was firmly fixed on playing tennis.
She like tomboy.
Former Scottish under-18 champion Jimmy McKechnie was appointed head coach at Perth LTC in 1979. His first meeting with the young Elena Baltacha is etched in his memory.
Ball going into the court.
Despite her age, Elena immediately made an impression. Elena was just 9 years old when Judy Murray first came into contact with her at an under-10s tennis tournament in Dunblane. Elena won the match, but thanks to her already powerful serve, lost all the match balls in the process. At around the same time, Elena was at a tournament in Bisham Abbey, where she came face to face with tennis superstar Joe Dury. As Joe remembers, Elena was determined to be noticed. Alan Jones, who coached with Joe at the Blah Blah Tennis Club, was also there, and as had become the norm, she made a remarkable impression on him too.
And what always I remember, we called the score out. 15 love.
At Perth, the Baltacha siblings had developed a unique way to develop their skills, even when they were away from the tennis club.
We used to just draw.
By the time Elena In 1995, Jimmy McKechnie was appointed West of Scotland country coach, which meant a move to Newlands Tennis Club in Glasgow. Elena had a big decision to make, and although the outcome would mean a big change to the Baltacha family, there was no doubt in her mind that it was the correct decision.
I think my sister had.
Despite being barely a teenager, Elena would soon be a key member of the Newlands ladies team. She had, however, already made her mark when it came to the senior players there.
Well, before she came to Newlands,
Despite being so young, Elena was already living a professional life, thanks to the positive influence of her athletic mother Olga. Before long, Elena was preparing to play in the prestigious Scottish Cup final with a prestigious doubles partner. Despite being just 14, she was unfazed by the event.
I think she's just 14 going on 15, and it was the final which...
Elena's first trip to Wimbledon was with her coach, Jimmy McKechnie, when she was still a junior.
I said, come on, we'll take you to Wimbledon.
First things first though, the drive to become good enough to get to Wimbledon. Doing daily round trips to Glasgow from Perth was demanding, so the family came up with a solution that allowed Elena to be homeschooled in the evenings and train during the day.
When I go to school,
Elena was blossoming into a promising tennis talent, and whilst she was excelling in Scotland, the environment was restricting her development. Having attracted attention from the LTA, the decision was made to join Alan Jones's tennis academy in London at such and such, where Elena would train under his tutelage.
So that was the next step up for her.
Jo Dury had never forgotten the vocal Scottish girl she'd met years earlier.
I remember.
Still a teenager, Elena's mindset was focused. She knew that to make it in tennis, she had to dedicate her life to it, even at junior level. It would stand her in good stead for the future. Stephen Marks, at the time the chief executive of FC UK, had sponsored Jo Dury's tennis coaching under Alan Jones. When Alan called him to ask him to help fund two talented teenagers, he asked to see them. When Alan called him to ask him to help fund two talented teenagers, by this time Elena was developing a reputation as a warrior on the court. Off it, the contrast was something of a pleasing enigma.
Or even as a journalist, when you were in.
Elena was an established player when Naomi Cavaday came through the ranks, and playing against her was overwhelming.
I played against her and it was just quite intimidating. Just the
Change in there. All right, let's do this. Testing, testing, testing. Video on the 9th. A proud Scot, Elena was also a citizen of the world. She would travel extensively throughout her career, but her story begins not in Scotland, but in the Ukraine, in the former USSR. Sergei Baltacha was recruited to the Kharkov Academy of Excellence as a teenager. It was a tough decision that would not only change his life, it would eventually mean a new life for all Baltacha family. Sergei Baltacha was recruited to the Kharkov Academy. Sergei Baltacha was recruited to the Kharkov Academy of Excellence as a teenager. It was a tough decision that would not only change his life, it would eventually mean a new life for all the Baltacha family beyond the Iron Curtain. Sergei Jr. and Elena's mother, Olga Belaus, was a boarder at the School of Excellence too. She was a talented athlete. In the late 1980s, Sergei Baltacha was one of the most high-profile players in the USSR, and it was his football talent that set the family on track for a new life in the UK. This wasn't just about the beautiful game though, it was about politics. Sergei Baltacha was making history. Elena was hooked, and soon she was playing regularly in a makeshift tennis court in the large family home. Despite being just 6 years old, Elena was always demonstrating a determination to succeed. In that respect, she was very much a product of her parents. Former Scottish under-18 champion Jimmy McKechnie was appointed head coach at Perth Lawn Tennis Club in 1979. His first meeting with the young Elena Baltacha is etched in his memory. Alan Jones, who coached with Jo at the Hazelwood Tennis Club, was also there, and as was becoming the norm, Elena made a remarkable impression on him too. Despite being barely a teenager, Elena would soon be a key member of the Newlands ladies team. Her reputation went before her though, as she had already beaten one of the more experienced players there. In 1995, Elena was preparing to play in the prestigious Scottish Cup final with an experienced doubles partner. She was unfazed by the event. Having attracted the attention from the LTA, the decision was made to join Alan Jones's tennis academy in London at Hazelwood, where Elena would train under his tutelage. Okay, VO 39 onwards. Having reached the semi-final of Wimbledon Juniors Championship, it was a dream come true for Elena to make her first appearance in the main draw of a Grand Slam at the hallowed venue. She didn't win her first round match against Natalie Decci, but she certainly made an impression. Elena's remarkable serve had already made an impression on her coach as a 15-year-old at Scotstoun, when the speed gun showed him just how good she was. Although Elena was already well known on the tennis circuit, it was the 2002 Wimbledon tournament that brought her to the public's attention. Her first round was against Maria Vento Cabci. Her first round was against Maria Vento Cabci. Her first round was against Maria Vento Cabci. The 18-year-old was nervous. Elena needn't have worried. With her renowned self-belief and determination, she rallied, winning the match 6-4, 6-4. She was on her way. Although this time it was a tougher test against the highly rated Amanda Coetzer. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the family were doing what they could to get used to the Wimbledon experience too. Elena's father, Sergei, would leave Wimbledon as exhausted as her. It's just as well Elena Baltacha was capable of coping at Wimbledon. Very capable, actually. She was focused on preparation for her second round match against Coetzer. Elena lost the first set but came back to win convincingly in 3 sets to claim her biggest victory to date. It was an outstanding win in what looked to be the beginning of an outstanding career for her. Lekovtseva. Elena lost her third round match against Elena Lovsika, but her career was on the up. Something wasn't right. Elena was suffering from repeated spells of illness with tonsillitis, chickenpox, flu, and debilitating fatigue. It was soon a suspicion that there was something seriously wrong. The tests revealed a serious problem and a period of prolonged worry for Elena. After 6 months of tests, Elena was finally diagnosed with a primary sclerosis cholangitis, a debilitating cholangitis. Elena was finally diagnosed with primary sclerosis cholangitis, a debilitating condition that compromised her immune system that inflames the bile ducts in the liver. After her diagnosis, Elena continued to be supported financially by Stephen Marks, FC UK. She took 6 months off from tennis, during which time she had to undergo surgery to remove a benign breast lump. Elena was living with her mother Olga, and together they worked to get her career back on track. Her persistence paid off. Her persistence paid off, and in 2005, despite her illness, she reached the 3rd round of the Australian Open. A few years later, frustrated that she hadn't been able to build on that success, she was ready to take her career in a different direction. She left the academy to join forces with Nino Severino. Elena settled quickly into life with her new coaching partner, ironically in Ipswich, where her tennis story first began. Elena's mother was also a key figure in her life, and her friends' lives too. Elena was constantly improving, and in 2009 she faced the powerful Alona Bondarenko at Wimbledon. She stole the show in a stunning performance of forgiving. Elena was constantly improving, and in 2009 she faced the powerful Alona Bondarenko at Wimbledon. She stole the show, giving a stunning performance in a 3-6, 6-3, 6-4 victory in the first round. Elena prepared for the match knowing that she had beaten Bondarenko before. Not at Wimbledon, but in the USSR when the family were back home on holiday in 1989. Elena stepped on court following a 9-hour overnight drive, giving Sergei a memory he'll carry forever. 2010 was an outstanding year for Elena. As part of that rewarding journey, Elena recorded her first win against a top 10 player. Ian Bates was there to witness it, the first of 3 such wins that year. As well as being an influence on the singles circuit, Elena was a key Fed Cup player. She had all the necessary qualities in abundance. Traditionally rivals as they emerged through the circuits, Elena and Anne Keithavong. Traditionally rivals as they emerged through the circuits, Elena and Anne Keithavong developed a powerful bond as Fed Cup players, thanks to the encouragement of Judy Murray. On the Fed Cup stage, Elena excelled. Judy Murray remembers one outstanding victory against a top player in Israel. Remarkably, despite the demands of life as a professional tennis player, is 2010 Remarkably, despite the demands of life as a professional tennis player, in 2010 Remarkably, despite the demands of life as a professional tennis player, in 2010, Elena was also focused on ensuring that young girls had the same opportunities in life as she had, regardless of background. Over dinner, the Elena Baltacha Academy of Tennis was born in 2010. Elena was always there for her niece and nephew too. Elena and Sergei would soon be planning for their wedding. But before that, Elena had her head set. Sounds like they're getting married. Is that Nino? I'm going to change that to Nino. Elena and Nino would soon be planning for their wedding. But before that, Elena had her heart set on becoming an Olympian. Ahead of London 2012, she was devastated when she shot. Ahead of London 2012, she was devastated when she thought she lost the opportunity to be selected. A case was presented to the selection committee outlining Elena's continued commitment to Fed Cup tennis. Judy Murray had the joy of telling her the news that she'd received a wild card and would be a member of Team GB. Elena and Anne Kivatong played as doubles partners at the Olympics. At the end of their final match, they stayed on court and reflected on all their achievements. After the Olympics, Elena struggled with injury, but was back at her best to win the Aegon Nottingham singles tournament in 2013. Later that year, however, she made the decision to focus on other things. She was excited for the future. Elena and Nino's wedding day in December 2013 was perfect, but unfortunately Elena's health was poor. The fact that she was struggling was noticeable. In January 2014, Elena was at Stephen Marks Tennis Academy when she collapsed in pain. She was taken to hospital, and following tests, she called Nino to tell him devastating news. Elena's family remained fundamentally important to her following her diagnosis. In hospital, she was remembering childhood moments with her dad. As Elena grew increasingly ill, the family continued to fight. With the help of Stephen Marks and the tennis community, Elena and the family flew to America in hope. A warrior off the court, Elena tried to stay strong and give her family hope. On the 4th of May 2014, surrounded by her loving family, Elena Baltacha died at home in Ipswich. This remarkable woman, an inspirational role model who excelled in tennis and in life, was just 30 years old. A proud Scot, Elena was also a citizen of the world. She would travel extensively throughout her career, but her story begins not in Scotland, but in the Ukraine, in the former USSR. Career, but her story begins not in Scotland, but in the Ukraine, in the former USSR. Sergei Baltacha was recruited to the Kharkov Academy of Excellence as a teenager. It was a tough decision that would not only change his life, it would eventually mean a new life for all Baltacha family. Oh, Sergei Baltacha was recruited to the Kharkov Academy. Sergei Baltacha was recruited to the Kharkov Academy of Excellence as a teenager. It was a tough decision that would not only change his life, it would eventually mean a new life for all the Baltacha family beyond the Iron Curtain. Sergei Jr. and Elena's mother, Olga Belaus, was a boarder at the School of Excellence too. She was a talented athlete. In the late 1980s, Sergei Baltacha was one of the most high-profile players in the USSR, and it was his football talent that set the family on track for a new life in the UK. This wasn't just about the beautiful game though, it was about politics. Sergei Baltacha was making history. Elena was hooked, and soon she was playing regularly in a makeshift tennis court in the large family home. Despite being just 6 years old,
never say die attitude, the
My sweetheart. Alright, transferring away. Good job.